Christine, is it a war?
Epic fury.
I don't know, Kate. I've heard a lot of different terms being bandied about.
I think it kind of depends on who you ask.
Some people are calling it a conflict.
When you have conflicts like this, you always have death.
I mean, Mike Johnson was like, no, it's not a war. It's not a war. It's not a war. He literally said it like that.
We're not at war right now.
Wow. Sounds like somebody trying to cover up for a war.
It sounds like a goddamn war to me.
We are not at war. We have no intention of being at war.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christine, who are we canceling today?
Pete Hegseth.
Finally.
Operation Epic Fury.
Finally, this fucker gets our wrath. Hey, everyone. I'm Katelyn Burns.
And I'm Christine Grimaldi.
And you're listening to Cancel Me, Daddy.
The show where we take a closer look at all the panic around cancel culture.
With thoughtful analysis.
And verbal shitposting.
Christine, I am ready.
Yes.
I am so ready to cancel Pete Hegseth.
It's a cancellation long in the making.
He comes up on our show so much.
Mm-hmm. The former member of the media.
Yes, which puts him squarely in our purview, by the way, as media critics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's not that many people who have made that transition from media to war crimes, but he's managed to pull it off.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been members of the media that have facilitated war crimes, but he's actually doing them.
Yes. It's a nice break from tradition to stop carrying water for war crimes and to actually do them.
How refreshing.
He's living the dream of every Atlantic editor.
Ooh. On a group chat?
Maybe.
Too soon?
A signal chat?
Yeah.
Are we clean on OPSEC?
We're clean on OPSEC.
This week, we're joined by the amazing June Sternbach. Probably know her as juniper.beer or Onion Person online. Just one of the all-time great shit posters, in my opinion. We are going to mock everything Hegseth and have an interesting conversation about American masculinity, too.
Yeah. It's a really rich conversation about performance. Wow, that has a double entendre, doesn't it?
I wasn't going to say it. Juniper, welcome to Cancel Me Daddy.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah.
We're excited to have you.
I can't wait to finally cancel Daddy. Is this the one? Is this where the one where you cancel Daddy?
No. Actually, technically that was last week.
Oh, really? Oh, God. Okay. Well, I was late on that.
The lore of the show is my original co-host, Oliver Ash Klein, is the cancel daddy.
Oh, I see. I gotcha.
When they left the show, we officially canceled daddy.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's kind of a great little, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah.
I think this week's person thinks they're daddy.
Oh.
I do think so. Okay, yeah, no, great. I have a lot of ideas about the Pete Hegseth and his masculinity, or at least self-assumed masculinity. Yeah, yeah.
The Secretary of Defense. Sorry. I was going to use that in the intro, and now I can't use it in the intro. Great. So Pete Hegseth is just like a Fox News guy.
Who is the Secretary of War.
And now he's... Okay, I refuse. First of all, it is not the Department of War. That is fake.
Are we dead naming the Department of War?
No, they can't be officially changed without an act of Congress. And there hasn't been an act of Congress. So it is still the Secretary, or it's still the Department of Defense.
While that is true, and I think that is like important to lay out, that it's like it's like technically still the Department of Defense. So one of the things, a theory I have about the current administration, and I think Pete Hegseth is like the perfect example of this, is, I mean, for years we've sort of seen how the right frames the left as woke, feminist, blue hair liberals with facial piercings, and they're weak, and all of this, and that. So I think a very intentional, on their part, counterbalance to that narrative to sort of frame something up in opposition to that is sort of like a what I've sort of taken to calling it like a masculinity fascism, right? So it's like the Department of War, again, not official, but the framing, the intentionality behind that name is very clear, especially as we are at war with Iran right now, right? It's like they are trying to instill cultural shift with that. And we see that in so many different other ways with this administration as well, in their framing of like, oh, we have to be strong, we have to be unapologetic. We're not going to fall prey to the woke cancel culture anymore. I think while true, it's still the Department of Defense. It's more about the intent. I think personally, it's more about the intentionality behind what it means culturally. Yeah.
Mm.
And it's ironic because we are fighting a not war with Iran right now, right? Like the administration,
something that
Hegseth
Congress
is
did
going
not
around,
approve.
No.
Yeah, people are asking like the administration about, oh, these U.S. troops have died. Like, what's up with that? And they're like, oh, well, that's what happens in war. And they're like, oh, so it's a war. And then they're like, no, it's not a war. Because legally they can't say it's a war.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm laughing at that, but it is the funniest fucking thing in the world, where they're like, it's like Tom and Jerry, right? Where they're like, yeah, so this is the war. And they're like, oh, the war. And they're like, no, I didn't mean, not the war, it's the conflict. And they're like, but you just said the war. And they're like, no, I didn't actually, you didn't hear that. And it's so fucking goofy. The games that these people play, the word games, it's really astonishing to sort of watch them sort of police their own language, if you will. They police their language. They sort of they're PC about it. They're not even brave enough to call it a war, which is what we all know what it is. It's an illegal war in the Middle East, another Gulf War. Yeah.
Well, and now they have this thing with the submarine sinking an unarmed Iranian warship that was coming home from like a demonstration with India, like a joint demonstration that the U.S. was invited to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into this. We were invited to it to participate, and we pulled out at the last second, I think knowing that we were going to be attacking Iran.
Oh, for sure.
So we knew that this Iranian warship would be on its way home. I think this is just a PR stunt that they turned around and like sank this ship that literally was not armed to respond.
And that's what's weird, because I do think you're right about, like, it was like a PR thing, but it's like, how does it look good? It looks
like a war crime.
Literally one of many that have already taken place with the bombing of the elementary school, day one almost of this war. I don't know if either of you saw, but there was Pete Hegseth, I believe it was him. He had the map behind him of different strike sites, the initial strike sites, and some people looked at that strike site in Iran, and basically what people are thinking what happened is that it was absolutely America that bombed that elementary school, because previous intel said that years ago it used to be a military base, but it had been since turned into a school, and they did not update their intel. So I am almost for sure. I mean, I already thought it was America, but I am almost 100% certain it was a war crime. America bombed 100 children. Fucking horrible.
Not to introduce even more dystopian potential facts to this. And I do think this is unconfirmed at this point, whether it had a role in that particular bombing, but I think as the Washington Post reported that Anthropic AI was used in the bombing. And I'm wondering, and I think I saw PBS confirm that this reporting, so it's not just rumors on the internet, right? It's been reported in multiple places. But I have a feeling that like the AI saw the old data of where this military base was and said this is a legitimate target.
Oh my God. You're probably right, because the AI, the use of AI and the Department of War or Defense, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely intertwined at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So Claude, helped us bomb children.
Horrible. Horrifying.
Yeah.
Jesus
Claude.
Christ. Ugh.
Well, on that note.
On that note, we're going to get to dunking on a man.
Yeah. Pete Hegseth,
Wonderful.
The tallest man with Napoleon complex, I think, ever.
How tall is he?
He strikes me as a normal sized man.
Like a 5'11" situation?
Yeah, 5'11", probably 6 feet, like right around there. Like he
probably
doesn't strike me as short, but his whole like image reeks of I feel inadequate.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, just confirmed. If it's to be believed, he's 6 foot even 6 foot. So average.
I am taller than
average. Me too.
No wonder he banished our kind from the movie.
He felt belittled. But no, I mean, I think that you sort of framed it up to start, where he's a Fox News host. I had never heard of this guy until he was chosen for this role, I watch a lot of right-wing propaganda, not because I enjoy it or think it's good, but because I like to ruin my brain by trying to understand what these people are distilling upon their audiences and trying to understand like why we're in the situation we're in. And this guy had never even fallen on my radar before, even though he was like a pretty primetime Fox News host.
Mhm.
But as far as I'm
Yeah.
aware, that's like really all he ever did, right? Like up until now, of course.
Okay, so going back before this, and I have to credit Christine with compiling almost all the facts that I'm going to name today because
It was hard to create this timeline because I didn't know if I should break it up into professional failures and then personal failures, or if I should just keep it chronological. And I decided that they were inextricable, so it is one chronological timeline.
I love that there are a notable amount of both. That's awesome.
Correct.
So he was like a U.S. I think Army reservist.
Mm.
He didn't get a very high rank, I don't think. I'm going to Google this right now. So he attained the rank of major, which actually is quite high in the Army National Guard.
I hit way above that in Halo 3. That's nothing. that's nothing to someone like me. That's fraudulent, frankly. Yeah.
I never played Halo, but they introduced a character that is basically Master Chief in Overwatch, so I feel like I could play Halo.
You'll understand the
Mhm.
basics. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's never too late. It's like, we saw the TV glow that they're talking about Halo. They're talking about playing Halo. They're talking about gender and transitioning. It's about Halo.
Well, you bring up an interesting point by mentioning Halo, but as a side note, there are an uncomfortable number of clips that have been going viral recently that are just from the game Arma 3.
Yes. Oh my God. I've noticed that too.
Like I saw a headline of like a missile strike on something, maybe a tank, right? And there are people like all of these like highfalutin politics pundits are like, I've never seen such clarity in a military strike video before. And then I saw a news article saying footage from a game has gone viral. And before I even clicked on it, I said to myself, that's Arma 3.
Yeah. It's kind of astounding just how
Yeah.
bad the internet, and this is why I think before we started recording, I was saying, do not get more online to Christine, because online, being on social media, being too online, like compared to where it was like even 5 years ago,
Yeah.
information is just good information is almost impossible to get these days. There's just so much misinformation. I've fallen prey recently, not to Arma 3. Let me be clear, not to Arma 3, but just like, the
Listen,
things
I
that are
have
just not
too
true.
many hours in the DayZ mod to fall for Arma footage.
You understand. You can see through that. You can see through that propaganda. But no, it's like there is just so much propaganda, and there's so much to talk about. This episode's not about Elon Musk, but there's so much that you can say about how all of this is a very intentional strategy by a lot of the right-wing people that own a lot of social media, like news media, traditional media now, to sort of not to make it a lot harder for us to believe a shared reality or even any information, because there's not a reliable source of any information anymore. So
Yeah. I would agree with that. And that's one of the reasons why we have this show, is to try to make sense of the news and like keep track of the dynamics that are influencing things. And like, I'm not as online as I used to be, thank God.
Congrats, yeah.
I was very mentally ill at one point. And Christine mentioned that she's not as online these days, and I think that actually helps us make sense of the news in a lot of cases, in a very strange, like roundabout way.
I actually do agree. Yeah. Because you find yourself in this ecosystem for too long, and you'll just sort of start to lose sense of reality. You'll start believing anything. No, I think it keeps your head a little clearer. I do think so.
So back to Hegseth. By the way, we're calling this episode Pete Hegseth as a wanker. I think.
I love it.
He was a major in the U.S. Army National Guard. He served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Guantanamo Bay.
Oh,
wow. What an accomplishment.
Oh, so he's a stand-up guy, is what you're saying.
And then in 2014, he became a Fox News contributor.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually became a Fox and Friends weekend co-host in 2017.
So yeah, that's like most of his background. I think before that, he led some veterans organizations, and they were mired in controversy because of his financial mismanagement, allegedly, and drinking on the job.
Oh, that seems to be a very common thing throughout all of his career, maybe still current career too, is that
Mhm.
he was at least attempting to be a functioning alcoholic and
Mhm.
like sort of drinking on the job almost
Yeah.
every single day from what I can gather. And like, I respect I respect that grind. I think it's in certain ways maybe I shouldn't say that's admirable. But but like I guess like, he I think was just a little probably not good for the type of work he was trying to do, like veterans
Yeah.
affairs, military, being like a public facing figure on Fox News. I think that's probably not a good thing. I think it actively works against him all the time, even to
Mhm.
this day.
And yet he continues to fail upward.
He does. Isn't that
Mhm.
interesting?
Well,
The
so
right-wing
at
space
Fox and
loves that.
Friends, he's most known for the axe throwing incident.
That's
Oh.
right. I don't know if I've ever looked into it. I've just heard about
Okay.
this. What is this?
Well-
Yeah, Kate, you told me about this, and then I
I
had to
did,
go
yeah.
down the rabbit hole.
Well, it just so happens that I have it here.
I don't want to watch it.
You
It's
don't
that
want to.
bad? Is it that bad?
It's not that bad. It's not
Okay. I'm not going to see somebody cleaved into two. Gets axed on live TV.
That's an awesome subhead. That's so
Oh
good.
my God.
This is the right way to throw an axe. No, it is all right up. And this was a Fox News exclusive. Fox and Friends co-host Pete Hegseth aiming for accuracy and missing.
Who's going to win this battle with the lumberjacks? That's what's next.
Ah!
What you didn't see
Oh
on air
my
is what the
God.
axe hit, or should we say who? Drum roll, please. West Point marching band drummer Jeff Prosperi got hammered by the axe while the other band members kept drumming.
Oh my
Ouch.
God.
But soon after, Prosperi was being interviewed by the very co-host who'd nailed him.
It's a delight to be here to celebrate. Absolutely.
And an even bigger delight to still have both hands.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there.
Wow, that
That's
is some segment.
crazy. Are you kidding me? He could have like genuinely straight up knocked his hand off there. Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like
Oh
you have
my
all these
God.
important like arteries in that part of your arm too.
Yeah.
Like
Did you see how Hegseth crouched after he realized that he had thrown the axe over the wall and hit someone?
Yeah. He
Like,
got so
that's not going
scared.
to help you, bro.
There was a moment where his life flashed before his eyes. Like that was like that would have been it if he like harmed this man, other than just sort of
Mhm.
hitting him. Thankfully, the guy just looked like maybe the handle hit him or something like that. Thankfully,
Well, I found the original Facebook post from the guy in 2015, I
the
guess.
drummer.
Yes, the drummer. My leadership told me there would be no axe throwing. I think the anchor person went rogue and decided to throw it.
no, he went rogue. That's
Rogue.
crazy. Oh my God, they just
This
let
is-
this dude do whatever he wanted, and he almost killed someone. Jeez, how much?
Weird.
How much do you think he was drinking that day?
Oh my God. I can
Over
tell you
under.
one thing. They were definitely clean on OPSEC.
Oh yeah, no, that's crazy. I think it's so notable and interesting that it is just like the average ascent for a right wing personality like this is just like you have a massive failure, you do something awful that gets either a lot of people killed, or like you are like embarrass yourself, you embarrass the people around you, and then they're like, I think it's time for a promotion. And
Mhm.
especially because like, I mean, we see this so often in the pushback against things like Me Too and like whatever cancel culture even means these days. It obviously does not exist. But we see this sort of like if someone goes through like being canceled, they get a massive pay grade.
Yeah.
They get hired by Andreessen Horowitz or whoever company. They get taken care of. Like, just look at Kyle Rittenhouse. He did what he did. He killed people in Wisconsin. Now he's like he's gonna live the rest of his life all right. He's going to have so much money until the day he
Yeah.
dies. So it's like these people will always fail upwards because it's sort of the mechanism of the American right wing. It's sort of priced in. The right wing sort of has that mechanism intentionally there to take care of their people.
Mhm.
Do you remember Kyle Rittenhouse's like Oompa Loompa phase, where
Yeah.
he was like very clearly wearing makeup and had rosy cheeks and like waddled around?
I do remember this. I don't know
Yeah,
if
it
you
was
know
really
though,
weird.
those were edits that he didn't actually look like that.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Those
that.
people were just
See,
like,
it got me.
it got you. People were editing him to look a little plump, a little round. He looked like a round boy. Very rosy cheeks. You want to, if grandma would want to pinch those cheeks.
It's very rare that we have somebody on the show that's more online than I am, actually.
I sadly am a little online. Yeah, sad to say.
Kate, how do you think that this failing upward fits into the cancel culture grift that we talk about a lot?
I think it's the same idea. Like, Hegseth is where he is now because he was on Fox News and Trump watched Fox News all day.
Yeah.
And like became impressed with him and was like, I mean, half of his cabinet is just Fox News people and people that he liked watching on TV. It's like, this is the closest we'll ever get to, I think, to like a government by media, because half of our government officials are just like media people, like TV people.
Yeah, I mean, so this actually just broke as we started recording. Trump, I was gonna say this in the context of, I think Trump absolutely just loves, he sees people perform on TV and he's like, though, that's my person now. I like the way that their voice and their lips move, and it makes my brain tickle. It tickles his brain in the correct way, and then he hires them. Notably, I was going to say he has not fired a lot of people this administration compared to the first administration.
Did he do it?
He just let go of Kristi Noem just 3 minutes ago. As of right now, I saw rumors that might happen today, like an hour ago. Just happened. So she was not pleasing his mind. She was not tickling the centers in his mind anymore, and he did let her go. But I do think it's very notable that he's sort of constructed this current administration around like the way people perform in the media.
Well, a lot of it is performed femininity too, because it has to fit that like Republican lady makeup ideal, just like you were talking about, like masculinity fascism.
I have
Absolutely,
not nice things to say about that look, by the way.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't either, but of course it is. It's sort of like
Spice Barbie.
Yeah, and it's like, it is a performance. Like, these women surround themselves with this, or I guess rather this administration, this Republican Party, this version of it surrounds themselves with people that will do this like Mar-a-Lago face. And she is one of the ground zeros, Kristi Noem, of this Mar-a-Lago face, and now she's gone. Like, that's not even enough to save her.
Yeah. I made this joke the other day online, but it's like, as a trans femme, I understand the reality of a bunch of your friends going to the same surgeon and getting the same face.
yeah. Honestly, why are these people being transphobic? These people should be like, we see you. Solidarity.
These are our traditions, okay? These are our traditional family values. How dare they?
Trans women and Mar-a-Lago face link. That's the underrated link up of the century potential right there. Yeah.
It's a Venn diagram I never expected to hear.
No. But of course, these people will never want to be normal about trans people because they're psychotic.
And I will say, like, we mentioned Kristi Noem being fired, and who's replacing her is Mark Wayne Mullen, who is literally just on television going, "This is not a war. What do you mean? Well, this is just what happens in war, but this is not a war."
He performed. He did that performance.
Yeah.
Was he already within the administration, or was he just some guy?
He, I believe, is a U.S. representative.
Yeah.
No way. I thought he was, because I've seen him go on television and speak. I just assumed he was already within the administration because he couldn't wait to fall over himself and suck Donald Trump off. So I assumed he was already in the administration. But of course, this is what we see with Pete Hegseth. This is what we see with every single person in this administration, is that it's about how you perform on television. If you no longer perform on television well, your purposes are done. You're done to Donald Trump. It's over for you. And I think Pete Hegseth continues to perform in the way that Donald Trump wants. He continues to go on television, goes, "We are unapologetic. We, in our war bombings of children, we will never apologize to the woke mob about war crimes. We will never do that." And that tickles Donald Trump's brain perfectly. Oh, it tickles him.
You know, something I wrote about several years ago was when Brett Kavanaugh was nominated. I really thought for a hot minute that Trump would pull the nomination because of the sexual assault allegations. And then I realized that Trump wanted us to eat that, right? He wanted us to choke on that. And it was just another way of pouring salt in the wound. And like, that's what he gets off on, right? And so I say this because Hegseth in 2017 allegedly sexually assaulted a woman at something called the California Federation of Republican Women Convention. So this came out in November 2024, shortly after Trump named Hegseth as his nominee for Secretary of Defense. And again, he's not going to pull something like that because he wants every woman to know, cis trans, that this is acceptable behavior.
And I think to build off of that, it's not even acceptable behavior. That is the behavior that they respect, right?
Yes.
And I think that
100%.
is a very important part of them trying to reorient the downstream culture. You know, I think Stephen Bannon, sort of the entire current Donald Trump administration sort of thrives off of Stephen Bannon's analysis of culture as downstream of politics. So at the top, Donald Trump is like, oh, we will bring in this guy who did this sexual assault on purpose because it's a counterbalance to the woke feminism, the cancel culture. They don't really care about stuff like that, of course. What they really care about is reorienting, in their minds, the culture through the politic top down.
That same month that those allegations came forward is my favorite Pete Hegseth moment. Okay, I'm going to read the quote and then I'm going to tell you who said it. Okay?
Oh, no.
Oh, I love this. This is fun.
And I'm going to leave out one part of this that gives away who it is, I think.
Okay.
On behalf of all the women, and I know it's a many, you have abused in some way, I say, get some help and take an honest look at yourself. I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years. And as your blank, it pains me and embarrasses me to say that, but it is the sad, sad truth.
I mean, my gut, which I feel like, I mean, is it Pete Hegseth? But like, I feel like that's too obvious, right? Is that this guy who did all this stuff is like, I hear you. Who? I don't know. That's my only guess.
This was Pete Hegseth's mom.
Oh no.
She was very disappointed.
So the New York Times reported that was the contents of an email that Pete Hegseth's mom sent him 6 years earlier following his second divorce.
And she subsequently disavowed it and, you know, all of that. But I think what she said really does carry a lot of weight.
I think
she
so
disavows
too.
it now when it would personally help her son.
Correct.
Do we know anything more about like his parents or his mom? Like they're not really they don't really get asked questions very often. I assume they don't really talk about their son very often. I guess I'm just sort of curious what their politics might be.
I think they come from a conservative background.
Okay. Yeah.
And his mom too. And he's had, I guess, like Trump, 2 ex-wives. He's on the 3rd one now.
Ooh, oh my God.
There have been allegations brought by his former sister-in-law, his second ex-wife, that he may have abused his second ex-wife. That's also the mother of his children. She has disavowed those claims.
Really?
Yeah. So again, it's just a lot of women being very quiet now that he is in a position of power.
I mean, yeah, he has.
I can't blame them. You know,
it's scary. I mean, the amount of power, like actual state power, they can wield against these women. Yeah, it's terrifying. I don't blame her at all. It's sad. It's genuinely very sad that it's being weaponized in this way. That's horrible.
Well, and then you look at what he did once he became Secretary of Defense, right? Secretary of War, whatever you want to call it.
They're the same. Yeah.
And, you know, he comes in and he basically cleans house. He's like, if you're a woke general, get out. He's like, no more men in dresses. Like, this is one of his favorite stump speech lines.
Jesus
it's like,
Christ.
No more DEI. No more men in dresses. Like, he's trying to talk like Trump, but he just sounds like an idiot. You know, he comes in, he like loosens the rules around punishing sexual assault in the military. Female generals and high-ranking officers are basically like run out of jobs. Like trans people are banned, which we all knew was coming on election day once we knew who won. Generals of color are like encouraged to leave. And then he does this big, I remember this, I don't know why I remember this so clearly, but he did this big like talk to the 250 like top generals,
right, back in September,
and hiring and like admirals. Yeah, and he was like, if you're not on board with us, get out, basically. And it was almost like a campaign speech, but like it was such a weird vibe because military leaders, like, they all have discipline. They're not gonna like applause you.
yeah.
And I think he was expecting applause. He had like this stage that was clearly designed for like a TV setting, and it was recorded and televised as far as I know. But all the generals just sat stone faced. So it was the most awkward thing.
So weird. But again, I do think that is like another example of them trying to reorient the culture at large by being by like, even I think if they got one general to resign, that's like the woke general or whatever, they genuinely, I think, would be like, that was a victory. That's exactly why they did that, to instill that, to be able to fill that role with someone that's a loyalist, because what they want on every level of this government is loyalists.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get, there were some complaints at the time, like anonymously from higher ranking generals. And now that we're like attacking Iran, you get reports that there are high level officers telling like the grunts who are actually doing all the work in the military that actually this war is a struggle for Christianity.
Yeah, it's like they're basically like, yep, the doomsday is happening. This is a crusade.
Yeah, we're gonna bring about the end of days and the Armageddon, and
that's
well,
concerning.
he has the Crusader tattoo. You explained that to me earlier.
Yeah, he has he has a tattoo that says Deus Vult, which is God wills it.
Oh, and he has a lot of other questionable tattoos as well,
Sure
right?
does.
Yeah, there's a few he's got there that are like, oh, this
if I
is.
was his mother, I'd have something to say about that too.
Yeah, if I was walking down the street and saw some of these tattoos on someone's leg, I'd be like, that's concerning. I would be like, that's maybe not a good dude. I don't know if I trust this guy.
I think there is this pervasive like Crusader cosplay thing happening on the right.
Yeah.
Editor Mentum wrote an article that I kind of disagreed with a while back, but he was basically like explaining how Paradox Grand Strategy games have like,
oh, I saw that, yeah,
paradox brained the right into thinking that everything is like this civilizational struggle, right? Like, I know the term Deus Vult because in Europa Universalis 4, which is my favorite game, right?
I spent like hundreds of hours in that game. I love it. Yeah, it's great.
I have 6,000 hours.
Oh, I think I have 600.
Oh my God.
Let me open my Steam. I'm going to check really quick how many hours. It's one of my most played games, which again is maybe it's like only 600. I used to play a lot more games, but sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
No, this is like my pastime before I transitioned, where I just like wanted to turn my brain off and not think about gender as I was invading. But there's if you take a certain idea group, religious ideas, you get to the end and the last idea is Deus Vult, which gives you a casus belli, which is like an excuse to go to war, like a legal justification for war, to attack any of your neighbors who are of a different religion.
That's right. Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, so I think that these people like genuinely see the world as the civilizational struggle. And I was listening the other day to the Gone with Evil podcast with our former guest, Eleanor Yanaga, who's a historian and
incredible.
We always have a good time when she shows up because she can relate modern day to history so well. But her podcast just did a whole thing about the First Crusades.
Ooh.
And the thing you realize listening to this is actually like the Muslim side didn't really look at this as a civilizational struggle. In fact, a lot of Muslim like microstates were allying with the invading Christian army because they didn't realize what it was, because they're like, oh, we can use these idiot Christians against our enemies. And then the Crusaders took Jerusalem and basically slaughtered everybody in the city, the Jews, the Muslims, everybody. And then the Muslims are like, oh shit, like we should work together to get these fuckers out.
Yeah.
And that's when like jihad really like became a common saying around that. And I think that these like Hegseth, I think genuinely looks at the world and he sees a dividing line between Christianity and Islam. And I think he thinks he's playing a paradox game.
I actually do agree. Like, especially the way that the current administration. I think Hegseth is a perfect example of this. I bet he has a couple thousand hours in EU4 as well. I wouldn't be surprised.
I bet you I could beat him.
If
you
we
could beat him.
we could do like a 2v2. Like we can we can work something out. We'll
He
figure it out.
can't even do a real pull-up, Kate.
He would never be able to rebuild the Holy Roman Empire. There's no way he would be able to do that in EU4. I doubt it. Yeah, there's no way. So the way I've kind of looked at it in the past, I don't really have any for sure like data, but this is just kind of my theory, is that in the past, let's look at George W. Bush. He lied us into the Iraq War, lied us into all sorts of shit. The agenda at the base level with George W. Bush, and even going further behind him, but let's just talk about George W. Bush and Donald Trump, essentially the same sort of neocon pro-war, lying us into whatever for whatever colonial purpose out there. But I think the difference is, if you look at a lot of the people in the administration at the time and the way that like religious allyships worked at the time, is the people, unless I'm wrong, I could be wrong about this, I don't think a lot of the administration under George W. Bush were heavily evangelical Christians. I think he did have a lot of evangelical Christians in his base, but I think a lot of the people in the George W. Bush administration were like Harvard, Yale educated, like neoconservative, like smart guys. I think that was like sort of that administration.
Kind of Christian by default.
Yeah, Christian because they go to church and that sort of thing. But like these days, this administration, it's sort of been entirely infiltrated by that very evangelical, sort of very radical right evangelical base of beliefs. Like that is at the top level of the government, throughout to the generals that are saying that this is a holy war, to the Christian pastors that they have filled these halls with. It is sort of the takeover of the evangelical right at the top of the party, rather than as the base has sort of been complete in the last couple of years, especially with Project 2025. I mean, that like Heritage Foundation ultimate victory, right?
Yeah, I mean, people forget that, during a presidential election, you're not electing one guy, you're electing 10,000.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's
you are.
10,000 federal administrators. So I do think that the vast majority of those 10,000 people are just the biggest evangelical freaks in this country.
And then also people like Marco Rubio, who just will do anything Trump says to get his war with Iran and Cuba and Venezuela, right? Like, absolutely. He gets those. He'll just take anyone who says yes to anything Trump does.
Speaking of the southern western hemisphere,
Oh boy.
we have war crimes to talk about. More war crimes.
Oh boy, really? I can't wait.
This is my favorite Hegseth controversy. It's the leak signal group chat.
Yes. Oh my God, that was crazy.
About the upcoming military strikes in Yemen.
I really thought he would get let go for that at the time when that first happened. I was like, this is like, come on. Like the administration just started already with like some pretty bad looks with these group chat leaks. They were really funny though. They were so funny.
Well, the leak was not intentional, but they included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic in the chat. It's not like somebody leaked it to the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic.
Yeah, that's true.
You just added a wrong number, bro.
Did they ever like explain or address the fact that they just sort of accidentally added a guy and like that just happened? Like, did they ever say like why that happened or how they didn't catch that, or were they just like, sorry, I don't know?
It was probably a case of like somebody had his number listed with like a first name, and they meant to add a different person with that first name.
I see. They do what I do when I meet someone new. I'd put their first name and how I met them. So if I know multiple people of the same name, I'll be like, okay, am I talking to John Cafe or John Work? Which one am I talking about? Which John is it? That's what Pete does.
Somebody looks at your phone and it's like, wow, you're really close to the Tinder family.
Wow, like a lot of Tinders. That's crazy.
That incident inspired a sticker that I have on my laptop, which is
That's awesome.
Oh
we are
God.
clean on offset.
Honestly, to use Signal and to have such a bad track record with it, like in terms of OPSEC, is crazy. That's wild. It's like Signal, maybe not even the best for OPSEC, but it's up there in terms of like, if you are smart, you can generally have clean OPSEC on Signal. It's quite easy to do that. I feel like even at the higher levels, right? Like that's just great. I'm surprised. You know what I'm surprised by is that this wasn't a Twitter group chat though. I'm so surprised. I really would have been like, okay, like they're talking to each other. Cause you know how JD Vance would like be in group chats with like 18-year-olds and 17-year-olds. Like come on.
I missed that.
Yeah. With those days. Oh, you never saw that?
I never saw that.
Yeah, no, he was JD Vance follows a lot of and knows a lot of like online fascists because he was in a lot of group chats with them before he became the nominee in 2024.
Wow.
Yeah, I forget exactly how that came out. I think somebody in one of the group chats posted some screenshots and leaked out one of the chats that JD Vance was actively posting in with like weird groiper 17-year-olds. Yeah.
He really is the biggest chud. I know we're talking about Hegseth, but JD Vance should really get his own episode.
He's a great candidate for this show. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
At the same time, though, with regards to JD Vance, have you ever seen somebody experiencing more gender euphoria than JD Vance
with
in
that
beard? Picture where he's wearing a dress in college?
Oh, yeah. He looks so happy. I'm so happy for her.
This is what happens when your eggs get rotten, people.
But no, the weird leaking, because didn't it almost happen twice? I could have sworn there was another group chat.
There was another group chat thing, but I don't remember what it was exactly. But there was another group chat where they're like, it got out somehow.
Yeah, like
but also I don't think you're supposed to be using Signal for government.
You're not, and you're supposed to be locking your phone in a skiff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Or at least communicating from a skiff.
It's one of those things where I have a lot of complaints about Kamala Harris, obviously. But one thing I always trusted her on is that she took OPSEC very seriously. Mm-hmm. She was always like, I don't use Bluetooth. Bluetooth bad. I don't like AirPods. They're bad for OPSEC. They're bad for security. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, at least I understand she's like on that topic, way smarter than Pete Hegseth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like the clasping hands meme with Kamala Harris and like the 5G conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, she knows too much. There's a reason why she doesn't use new technology. She knows.
I was thinking of the boat strike, the double strike on the boat when in the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah,
with I think it was a Venezuelan boat, like it was like a fishing boat, and they claimed it was carrying drugs. And then they like shot a missile at it and capsized it. And according to international law, like you have to leave it there. You have to give them a chance to survive. But no, they shot another missile.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when that broke, Hegseth was like, "Yes, I ordered that."
Oh.
And they're like, "Oh, Mr. Hegseth, that's a war crime, right?" And he's like, "Oh no, I didn't order it. Really. It was this admiral." Who ordered it.
He genuinely was like, yeah, I'm cool. Like he was like, if he admitted that, he would be like cool. Like he's like the cool guy for ordering.
He's like,
I'm
the alpha.
Yeah.
You damn right I ordered the code red.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that sort of underlines the like whole need to perform masculinity. Like, people talk about performing gender, like, and especially in regards to being trans. But there is like a big movement on the right now where they perform hyper masculinity. That is so much of what's happening, is that they are very insecure. They feel the need to overperform their masculinity to a degree that is just absurd and ends up in war crimes, apparently.
You see it also in like the memes that they make of Trump, where he's portrayed as like this hyper masculine, like
Giga
ripped
Chad.
man.
Yeah.
And actually he's like more out of shape than I am.
No, it's very, very odd that they do that, especially, like there is no indication that he is, because like the thing that everyone knows about him, Donald Trump, is he's very catty. He's like a very catty guy. He loves drama.
Is.
He loves to talk about like, oh, they don't want me to say this. They're going to be mad at me. Like he's not like a strong guy. He's a very catty guy.
He's a catty, bratty queen.
He's a brat. He's a brat.
Theater.
He's a theater kid.
He's a theater kid. He's genuinely a theater kid.
Yeah. You've seen those interviews where I think it was like sometime in the Biden era where he was like in an interview with, I'm blanking on who it is, but he was being asked about his favorite plays. And Donald Trump is like, oh, let me tell you about this wonderful, wonderful play I just saw. Like, he's like an actual real theater kid. He talks, he loves Phantom of the Opera. I don't know if you have seen any of that, his love for Phantom. There is dozens of different times where Donald Trump starts talking about how much he loves Phantom of the Opera, and he queens out over it. Yeah.
More recently, you have the Scouting of America controversy, which was just a couple of weeks ago, where he, like, Hegseth was like, we're cutting off our 100-year relationship with the Scouts.
Yeah.
Which used to be known as the Boy Scouts, but now they're Scouts of America because they are gender inclusive. And he's like, there's no more gender inclusivity in the Boy Scouts, right? And he's like dead naming the organization.
Yeah.
But it turns out that actually, like, they didn't change anything at all. Like, I posted about it on Blue Sky, and then I got, no kidding, like 5 different Signal DMs from like trans people who are still involved in the Scouts are like, actually, this isn't true. Like, this didn't.
So they just
happen.
straight up lied about them breaking ties with the Scouts?
So they threatened to break ties with the Scouts and then claimed that they made a deal that the Scouts would no longer have like DEI and like the Washington Post reported that like trans kids were not allowed to join the Scouts anymore, but actually that part wasn't true, and WAPO had to come back and issue a correction.
My God.
Oh, okay.
All of the things that mentioned DEI in the Scouts policies, they had to strike, and that ended up just being the deal. But like trans kids can still be Scouts. They can still be in their own gender. Like there's no, so it was a whole performative thing.
Yeah.
But again, this is another performance of masculinity.
It is. It is. It's like the performance also hinges so much on othering people, right? That is sort of the through line of a lot of this, is that it's like, oh, we won't take any more of your woke nonsense. We're going to other you from society now, because they, I think, due to like someone like Pete Hegseth's insecurity, felt like genuinely that masculinity, like the left wants to outlaw being a masculine man, which is like, come on, like no, like not, that's not happening. That's really not, that has never happened.
I don't want to outlaw a masculine man. Okay, I want to sleep with one.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, is like, you know, a lot of people really love men, like,
yeah.
you know, yeah,
it's a curse. It's a fucking curse.
I get it. No, I totally understand. But it's like, that is sort of like the function of this sort of masculinity, especially that is sort of throughout this administration, is not just like what it is to be like just like a guy, which like a lot of people are and are normal. It is the fact that you have to weaponize that level of power and sort of hyper perform that masculinity and attack other people with it. They only feel secure when they are putting someone down.
Yeah, I read an article today that was like, Gen Z men want kids, but Gen Z women have questions.
Yeah.
And then there's another survey that I don't know if it was part of the same article, but I saw it literally this morning. Gen Z men are more likely to want a subservient wife than boomer men.
Really?
And I was like, how cooked are we?
That's really weird. That's sort of been like a trend I think we've been seeing in a lot of other countries, even outside of the United States, though, is that like, you know, Gen Z is more to the left generally, but men tend to have a lot more of an, like, especially if they're on the right, have a much more archaic view of gender roles, a very more traditionalist approach to that. I mean, you can see that in South Korea, you can see that in the United States, you can see that even the UK in some cases. Like, it's sort of everywhere, this like younger right-wing traditional man, which is nowhere near the majority, I think, of that generation, but a concerning amount of them is like a very real thing.
I mean, I think they're bred online with these like manosphere influencers.
Especially when Pete Hegseth posts a Halo edit of them doing like a airstrike in Israel, because that's based, right? That's like a based epic thing.
I thought it was COD.
It probably is COD. I'm just saying Halo. Halo's on the brain right now. I'm thinking about Halo.
Because COD is much more contemptible, actually.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think it was absolutely COD. But no, it's like that is sort of like the thing that they look up to, is like the Giga Chad based, dunking on the libs sort of thing.
Playing COD is based.
Playing COD is based. War crimes are based.
How do you think Hegseth took it when Patagonia challenged him to pull up competition?
Wait, what is this? I don't know about this.
See this.
No,
okay.
I've missed this. What is this?
Yeah, can you play it?
I think you linked to it. Did you?
I sure did.
Hell yeah.
Patagonia is a drag queen.
Okay, so we...
Oh, I think you're talking about the clothing brand, Patagonia.
No, there is an ongoing lawsuit, and we support Patagonia.
Patagonia. That's awesome.
show with President Trump. Hi, Pete Hegseth. How do you here? While you're busy trying to take away the rights of queer people, I'm over here advocating for the rights of all people, including my right to do better pull-ups than you, all with my balls tucked inside of me. And that's 50, you little bitch.
Oh, I love her. Oh, she's great. Oh my God. That's awesome. They need to do a competition. If Pete Hegseth wants to I think that's something Donald Trump would love, is to watch Pete Hegseth versus Patty Gonia pull up. They do some pull-ups. That's a great TV performance. And what does Donald Trump love more than a great TV performance? And maybe, maybe he'll be like, Pete Hegseth, he only got 10. He only got 10 pull-ups, but 50.
I just love the video of Hegseth kicking his feet in order to pull himself up. And it's like, no, that's what I did in like high school to pass my fitness exam with no upper body strength.
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I'm currently doing when I'm like doing sit-ups in my workout routine. Cause I I'm tired after the fourth rep, I got to put my arms out a little bit to get that momentum. That's what I do. That's what the type of shit I do.
I've started deadlifting for anti-fascism just in case.
Absolutely. No, the great, honestly, everyone a fascist has worked out today. Have you? So keep in mind. Keep that in mind.
I think we need that on a shirt.
Yeah, that's a keep that in mind. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last Hegseth controversy, I think, and it was literally just this week with Anthropic AI.
Mm-hmm.
Hegseth comes out and says basically like Anthropic said that they would not sign off on the U.S. government using Claude AI to surveil Americans because it's unconstitutional, and they said that they wouldn't let the U.S. military use Claude AI to order strikes, right? Like they wanted a human involved to press the button to say to strike, right? Which I find reasonable. Like, okay, if I ran a company, I wouldn't be trying to contract with the U.S. military, but that's me personally, right?
It's like we don't want Claude to do war crimes.
Right.
And
Hegseth came out and said, no, like you need to drop these restrictions.
We want the robot to do war crimes.
Yeah. And Trump came out and said, we will order the entire federal government to like basically uninstall Claude and use something else. And they really tried to strong arm this company. And I mean, there is no ethical AI, but to their credit, Anthropic said, no, we're just not going to sign off on it. And it was so funny because like Anthropic got a lot of positive PR from this. Like their employees were really encouraged that they were taking a stand. Like OpenAI like signed off. I'll come back to this. OpenAI was like praising them for standing by their principles. Like they got a lot of like positive PR from this. And then like the deadline came and Anthropic was like, no, we're not dropping our demands. And who steps in? Sam Altman at OpenAI is like, no, we'll do it.
Everyone's favorite guy, Sam Altman. It was
What
like,
a
yes, we
useless
want to
human
do war
being.
crimes for you.
I got him
Yes.
confused with Sam Bankman-Fried the other day.
Oh
and
my
I had
God.
to reorganize the Sams in my head.
There's not many Sams, but the ones we know are all really bad. I don't think there is Sam Cedar. I quite like Sam Cedar. That's like maybe the only politically notable Sam that I know that's not evil. I could be wrong though. Hopefully I'm not forgetting a good Sam, a moral Sam. There's not many Sams that are moral.
Show one time, but he wasn't there that day, so that was sad for me.
But no, that whole thing, especially I found the backlash to OpenAI in particular that like Katy Perry was like, I'm dumping OpenAI. I'm now buying Anthropic. I'm getting Claude, and it's like, okay, first off, why? What is Katy Perry doing with a $200 subscription to an AI? Like that's weird to me, first of all. But then second of all, it's like it really did cause like a massive backlash that like Pete Hegseth was like demanding these of these AI companies, and Claude, to their credit, I think so far have stood by that.
Christine, I think we need to have a Sam Altman episode at some point. Maybe we do that next if nobody else better pops up.
Oh God, he is rich with I don't know how much you know about him, but I don't know too much about it, but I know there's the conspiracy, possible real thing where he may have killed someone.
Oh,
allegedly.
Interesting.
I don't know too much about it.
Please don't sue us.
Yeah.
We are not making a firm accusation.
I am making an alleged accusation based off of rumors from other people. But there's some stuff to dig into there.
All right, Juniper, final thoughts. Let's wrap up this Pete Hegseth shit sandwich. Is Pete Hegseth a wanker?
I think he's a wanker. Oh my! Of all of the people in this administration, a lot of wankers, lots of them. But I think he's peak wank, right? He's the peak wank.
Peak wank. Pete wank.
Pete wank. He's the Pete wank.
He is the peak Pete wank. Like he is he like everything he does is like a performance. Everything he does is because like based around his insecurity. He is like, oh, we're doing this war, and they're like, we're doing this war, and he's like, no, it's not a war. Actually, it's like he can't even hold to like an actual standard reality that anyone can agree upon. He like everything is about like, cancel culture. Can't like I don't know. To me, if your entire ideology is sort of based around like this sort of view of the world that like everything is anti-woke and that therefore we have to destroy it is just pathetic, frankly. I think that is wanker. That is peak wank potential.
I think we roll out on that, actually.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Christine, are you ready for some out of context cancellations?
I sure am, Kate.
All right. We don't have too many of them today, but if you want to leave your own out of context cancellation, you can do so by joining our Discord, which you can get access to through our Patreon, patreon.com/cancelmedaddy, by leaving a YouTube comment or by leaving us a voice message at memo.fm/cancelmedaddy. So the first one we have is a comment left on our last episode's YouTube channel, right? And it's cancel the 2x2 cult for creating and maintaining a global human trafficking network for close to a century that mostly flies under the radar.
Oh my God, yes.
That is a lot of context.
That is a lot of context. Cancel that.
I don't know anything about that, though. Do you?
I don't know. It sounds like something vaguely Epstein related.
Well, this is out of context cancellations, and I will not be looking into it further.
Yeah.
We had no voice memos this week, which is very disappointing.
We love your voice memos.
We are canceling means testing access to welfare.
Absolutely cancel that. It's racist and classist and bullshit.
It's also inefficient. Like you're paying a bunch of administrators to figure out who deserves something when you could just spend that money on giving money to people who deserve it.
Yep.
Like ironically, like, okay, I'm going to rant for a second, okay? Because this makes me so mad. You make these programs, right? Like the government makes these programs. It doesn't matter what it is. Anytime they introduce means testing, and they're like, we want to make sure that like people who don't deserve it don't get this money. And then they hire people to determine who deserves it. But technically, they're giving money to people who don't deserve it, who get those jobs to determine who doesn't deserve it.
Wow.
It's means testingception here.
Wow.
It makes no sense to me. It makes no damn sense.
Yeah.
Anyway. Thank God I finally got to get that rant off on this show.
Have you been waiting?
Oh, it's been locked and loaded for a while.
Yeah.
I can't stand means testing.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's
bullshit.
the dumbest thing. It's like Mandani when he was like, I'm gonna make the buses free. And everybody's like, well, what if a rich person gets a free bus ride? Great.
Everybody gets a free bus ride.
That's amazing. Buses are amazing. Okay.
I'd say it'd be like very Oprah, but she's a billionaire. So
that is another person that is not driving a car to get in front of you for traffic. And buses can take like 50 people in a tiny space.
Right. Should be thrilled.
You should be thrilled. Cancel coworkers who message you on Teams with hello, and then it's coworker is typing for like 6 minutes.
Ooh, the anxiety laden in that.
Or when your boss like messages you on Slack and they're like, we need to talk. Do you have a moment? And it's just a DM and they're like typing the whole time. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, my dad will text me like, call me, like something is wrong.
It's the worst.
Yeah, I'm just like, sometimes he'll now say like, call me, nothing is wrong. But it's like, why? What is happening here?
One time my mom called me at like 8 a.m. and I was like, oh my God, dad died.
Oh my God.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
No, I know. But it's just like, yeah.
But that's what you think.
Mhm.
We are canceling award shows.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see what happened with the BAFTAs?
Yeah, that was terrible.
It was awful.
And I mean, I know that there are complexities to the person's disability. Why the hell didn't they edit that out, though?
I think the BBC wanted to cause controversy
Uh,
because they edited out other slurs for other minorities that he yelled at.
You know, I once called British racism a full English breakfast.
That's just the whole haggis right there.
Oh,
All of our British listeners are now mad at us.
we love you.
Somebody wants to redact a cancellation.
Okay.
I believe last week we canceled, or the week before, we canceled Anthropic at some point, and somebody wants to uncancel that.
Because Anthropic did something mildly good this week.
They're still bad, though. They still committed a war crime, technically.
You're still in the negative category. You're not moving out of that.
We have somebody seconding the means testing cancellation, and also canceling states whose eligibility rules for Medicaid don't exempt SSDI from income-based cutoffs.
Yes, that's a policy nuance, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
That cancellation.
And lastly, we're canceling conservative parents dead naming and misgendering their dead children in obituaries and when contacting said child's friends.
Oh, God, that's so terrible.
I don't know if I ever told you this, but one of the reasons why I transitioned is that I didn't want to be buried in a suit.
It's uncomfortable.
It wasn't the comfort that got to me.
Yeah.
With that said, that's our show for this week. We're going to take it over to the Patreon segment now. And this week we are talking about the Kansas invalidating trans people's driver's licenses, which will be really interesting.
Yeah, I got a lot of fucking things to say about that.
If you want to catch that, it is on patreon.com/cancelmedaddy or in our Apple bonus audio. And here's a little sneak peek.
This is the same kind of bounty bill, and it's basically allowing other people to invade your privacy and then sue you over it.
Yeah. It is. I think that the bathroom stuff is bad, and the bounty stuff is bad.
Yeah.
I think that the driver's license stuff is worse.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
So I'm kind of torn on this because part of me is like, why do we even have sex or gender on our ID to begin with? And like, if you go back in time to when IDs were first being instituted, anywhere in the US or Europe, like the first IDs didn't really have gender. It wasn't until the 1970s when men and women, like women really started to wear pants more often and men and women were kind of dressing very similarly, that government officials had a panic about that and started like requiring gender to be on.
I'm just laughing at the great pants freak out. Pants off, dance off.
The pants panic, the pants nick. Cancel Me Daddy is a Flytrap Media production, and today's show is made by me, Caitlin Burns, and my incredible co-host, Christine Grimaldi, along with our editor, May Schultz.
Dee Peterschmidt made our theme song, and Romy Tirico designed our graphics. Transcriptions by Heather Lengefeld. Our thumbnails are made by Sarah at bursty.com. That's BURSSTY.com. Ads by Multitude Productions.
Our show is made possible by the incredible cancelers supporting our work, especially the members of our Canceler Hall of Fame, with the great power to cancel all of their enemies. Meg.
We appreciate your support.
Happy canceling.